Hi, my name is Jamie Fitzpatrick, and I'm one of the members of the jury for the 2020 BMO Winterset Award, which celebrates excellence in Newfoundland and Labrador books. And right now, I'm joined by Eva Crocker, who is one of the three finalists for this year's award. Hello.
Hi, Jamie. Thank you.
Eva is nominated for this book, All I Ask. It's her debut novel. And I should mention that the other finalists are Bridget Canning. Her novel is Some People's Children. And Andrea Proctor. She's the author of A Long Journey, Residential Schools in Labrador and Newfoundland. My chats with Bridget and Andrea are also posted here on the ArtsNL YouTube channel, so you can look for those today. But right now it's Eva's turn. Thanks a lot for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Are you ready to take my version of the Winterset questionnaire, I guess we call it?
Ready as I'll ever be, I think.
All right, let's start. So there are kind of 6 questions here divided into 2 parts. The first part is 3 questions that pertain very closely to your book and how it came together. So in writing All I Ask, here's question 1. What was the most satisfying moment for you in the creation of your book?
I think, so the book is based on, or sort of inspired by an event that really happened to me in 2017. A group of police officers forced entry into my home, RNC officers in St. John's, and told me that I was under arrest, which was actually not true, for transmission of child pornography. And they refused to let me use the phone. They didn't read me my rights. They broke all kinds of laws in that process. And so what happened to me, I'm sure would have been far worse if I were a person of color, or if I were elderly, or if I had children there with me, if I wasn't so comfortable with English. But at the same time, it was very disturbing. And I filed a complaint afterwards, which it took them 2 years to respond to. And then I had 2 weeks to respond to that complaint and appeal it. So anyway, all of that was like deeply unsatisfying and disturbing. And getting to write my account of it in the book was a way of kind of reclaiming that experience and thinking about it. So the book is about that, and it's a fictionalized account of the aftermath of that incident. So it's partly about technology and privacy and how much of ourself is in our digital mirror image. But it's also a love story, and it's set in St. John's in a very particular moment. And the other thing that I have found very satisfying, or been very grateful for, is people who've come to me afterwards and told me that it really does feel like St. John's in that moment. Because that's really one of the big things that I wanted to do with the book is capture that feeling of 2017 in St. John's and kind of all the civil unrest that was happening. People were protesting Muskrat Falls Dam and the Snellgrove trial and the new Liberal budget. And it was kind of a dark time, but also a time when it felt like a lot was possible. A particular time for music in the city, and all that was, I wanted to try and cram in there.
All right, so some of what you've touched on there leads us to the second question, and I think probably you've already partly answered this one, but how would you describe the book to someone who will never get a chance to crack the cover and never get to read it?
Right. I would probably try to say all that a little more succinctly. And I would also mention that it's a queer love story. So it's about kind of the pain of not getting to choose what you're going to reveal about yourself to the outside world, but also how empowering it can be to decide that you're going to show yourself to the world, or to just one person even.
All right, question number 3. If you had a chance to enter the story in some parallel universe where you're allowed to do that, and you could actually experience and be there for one of the scenes from your book, what moment would you choose?
I think there's a party in the book that's a kind of intergenerational party with family and friends where everybody has kind of prepared a dish and is sharing it and singing and being together with elderly people and kids. And in this moment of COVID, I'm definitely craving that kind of coming together.
That does sound like it would be a good experience if we could, if we can only remember how that goes.
Yeah, without any kind of stress lingering about how close you're standing to each other.
All right, so we're at the halfway mark. Now I've concocted questions for part 2 of the questionnaire. In this part, we kind of move beyond the book and dig a little bit more into you as a writer. So question number 4, where would all your creative energy go if you weren't a writer?
Right, I feel very torn about this question because I think there's a lot of things that I would love to be better at, like drawing and sewing. I love bedazzling an item, but that's kind of the extent of my ability in that department. Also, cooking is something I really admire and would love to be better at.
All those things.
Yeah.
All right, the 5th question, number 5. What song or movie or artwork or any other creative work would you turn to that you never get tired of and that always sticks with you?
I really love Lucinda Williams' Car Wheels on a Gravel Road, which is an album that's in the book, but it's also just, it's in there because it's so important to me. And I remember the cassette tape that my parents had of it when I was a kid, and we used to listen to it in the car all the time. It had that on one side, and I think Shania Twain on the other side, or possibly Liz Phair. Those 3 albums were floating around. And it's just a really beautiful album. It just gets richer for me as time goes on.
So among Shania Twain, Liz Phair, and Lucinda Williams, Lucinda is the one that really stuck with you.
Yeah, although I sometimes revisit Liz Phair as well.
Sure. All right, the final question, number 6, brings us back to books. What is the book that you've read in your life that never leaves you, that always stays with you, even though it's been a long time since you read it? It's always with you.
Yeah, I think there's a few, but the one I was thinking about today is this short story collection called Sightseeing by Radawat Lapsha-Rornsap. And it's about Thailand and about globalization and colonialism and the tourist industry. I think it came out in like the early 2000s. And it's probably like 10 years ago that I read it, but there's still images from that collection that are so vivid in my mind. And I feel like I learned so much about short stories from that book, because there's like a whole entire lives that are captured in these stories. And there's like a story about a boy who has his face burnt by gas from a motorcycle, and that passage is just like burned into my brain. It's a really beautiful book.
I hadn't heard of it. Tell us the title again and the author.
Sightseeing by Radawat Lapsha-Rornsap.
Okay, well, thanks for the recommendation. And that wraps it up. That's Eva Crocker handling today's version of the Winterset questionnaire that I sort of came up with on my own. Don't forget, if you're watching, the other 2 Winterset finalists are also taking questions from me, Bridget Canning and Andrea Proctor. You can look for those videos here on the ArtsNL YouTube channel, and make sure you pick up and read these 3 shortlisted books for the 2020 BMO Winterset Award, celebrating excellence in Newfoundland and Labrador writing. All I Ask by Eva Crocker, Some People's Children by Bridget Canning, and A Long Journey by Andrea Proctor. Thanks for hanging out today, Eva.
Thank you so much.
And thank you all for watching.